Hello, I'm Diane Richard, your host of Let's Talk. When you speak of guardian angels, mentors, community outreach, group intervention, what comes to mind? Well, I have recently spoken with someone that all of you may know, but not in the capacity that we will talk about today. This person was bigger than life on the football field, yet he is unassuming, humbled, and dedicated to helping our youth. If I mention the name of this unsung hero we're talking about, you will say something like, "Really? I had no idea." I'm talking about one of Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl 40 champions, Mike Logan. But today, he is our unsung hero. Mike has transitioned off the gridiron to the asphalt jungle. He patrols the streets of Pittsburgh as a representative of the Group Violence Intervention Program known as G.V.I. G.V.I is soon to be a household name and is a City of Pittsburgh collaboration with the faith-based community representing 3 geographical areas of Pittsburgh's neighborhoods. The model involves community, church, and outreach, which is the core for violence, outreach, and prevention. A main objective for the group is the de-escalation of potential encounters before police enforcement is necessary and/or required. This amazing man works in the public school system at University Prep as a mentor and a coach. Wait until you hear his amazing story of why he turned to a life of outreach and mentorship to our youth, and hear him talk about some of his success stories. Mike also works with F.L.O.W, Family Life Outreach Worker, which is an independent nonprofit and an affiliate of Family Life Empowerment Community Development Corporation. Please take time to hear his story and his testimony of why he feels strongly about helping our youth excel as he strives to help instill and promote personal leadership, growth, skill building, problem solving, and so much more.
Super Bowl XL, and here is the evidence, the hardware that I'm wearing on my hand. And very fortunate to have that opportunity to play for my hometown team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I was drafted by, do you know who I was drafted by?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Jacksonville Jaguars. They
Yes.
were the team that gave me my first opportunity in the NFL, but such a blessing to come home and play for my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers.
But you're being much too modest because you were drafted as a second-round draft pick.
Yeah, I was. I got drafted 50th overall. Owe a lot of credit to a lot of my collegiate and high school coaches who helped me propel myself up to that level because I had some adversity in college. I didn't know where I would be drafted at. I ended up breaking my forearm 3 times in my tenure down at West Virginia University. And I wasn't sure where my draft status would be, but I had a lot of encouragement and support.
And you made it happen.
God made it happen.
Yes.
I was the
You were
vessel
the
that
to
vessel
do it,
nobody
yes.
special, I like to say. But
I like that. The vessel nobody special. I like
vessel
that.
nobody special. And you know, I was very fortunate and very blessed to have that opportunity to be drafted so high and to be able to play in the NFL for over 10 years.
Awesome. So how was your life as a Pittsburgh?
When people say that it's really hard to put into words how they feel about something, you always say, well, they can explain it. You know, they should be able to show their elation through their words. For me, I really couldn't. Because me playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers embodied so much other things that people really didn't know or may not have known. My grandfather, Theodore Harbor, was one of the first African-American safety managers at the J&L Steel Mill. The J&L Steel Mill was demolished. The site where the Pittsburgh Steelers offices and practice field is right now is that site. So I actually got to come out of the building every day and practice where my grandfather got his hands dirty, made a living for my family to give me that opportunity. So it was special for me. It was deeper than football. And that's why I poured out my heart to give everything that I had every day, not just on game day, not just on Sunday, but every day I went out to practice. It was very special. So when I talk about that, I really can't conjure up the words to show the emotion that I felt on a daily basis, because he passed away and never got to see me put on that uniform in a physical form. But he was with me every day, spiritually.
Absolutely. He
Yeah.
saw you practice.
Yes, he did.
He saw you
Yes,
on
he
the
did.
field.
He's the one that gave me that encouragement on days when I was down, when I wasn't having such a great day at practice, or going through the injuries that I had to endure in battle. I thought about his fight as being one of the pioneers in that industry, and it propelled me to get up every day and do it when I didn't want to do it. Well, I feel like, God put me in this position for a purpose. And it wasn't just to hoist up a Lombardi trophy, to shine the Super Bowl ring. It was to do acts of service. And even though playing football may not seem like an act of service, it may seem like entertainment, that was just the vehicle he used for me to be able to perform those acts on that high platform. So when I got finished, and I retired at the age of 33, I believe, after playing 10 years in the NFL. And I was like, well, what else am I going to do? What is my real purpose in life? And I was like, it's to keep performing acts of service. And I was able to start mentoring. I had a nonprofit foundation called Logan's Heroes, where I tried to raise money and resources for educational and athletic programs from disadvantaged and distressed situations. So I started doing that, and I ended up coming home in 2000 to play for the Pittsburgh Steeler, and I would just have little community events down by in Crawford Village, in Crawford Square, where I got my mother a townhouse, and I would have little cookouts over there at the playground, and as these young kids would come up and ask me. At the time, I was playing for Jacksonville. I had just got back home. So they were like, you're a professional football player. And I was like, yeah, I'm coming home to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they're like, wow. And they were like, where do you live at? And I was like, well, my mother lives over there, and I got a house in the Hill District. And they're like, what? Like a Pittsburgh Steeler lives in our community? And I said, yeah. And I wanted to show them that even though I was a, quote, celebrity, that I was a human being just like them. I was raised and brought up on the same streets that they were brought up on. And I wanted them to see that success, to be able to feel me, pinch me, and see that reality. Yes. And I said, this is it. This is what I have to do when I get finished. I have to keep serving the community, using the forum that I had by giving mentorship to young men and young women in these communities so they can go out and strive and achieve their goals just as I did.
And that's very interesting that you say that, because I think it's very important for our young people to know, and I'm just taking you as a Steeler, that what you've done in the past does not define what you can do going forward.
Right.
Even if it's to the positive or to the negative. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That it shouldn't define you. The service that you give people and show that you care and that you love them and that you can encourage them, that's what's important.
Right. And one of my messages is don't be defined by your past.
Right.
At all.
Exactly.
Whether good or bad.
Right.
Because you can always do better, because you always have an opportunity to grow. You always have an opportunity to learn in all aspects of life. So don't be content on just saying, oh, okay, I was a Super Bowl champion. Now I'm a Super Bowl champion that's serving in my community. You can always add titles, since everybody's so caught up in titles in our society. You can always add to that. So I always want to keep growing. That was my mission, just to keep growing. And I had a very special lady in my life, Linda Marie Logan, who was my mother. She passed away in 2008, who told me that my journey didn't stop after winning Super Bowl XL. Even though I had accomplished my childhood dream that I had set forth when I was 6 years old on a coal bin in West Mifflin in Whitaker Projects, saying that I would be a Pittsburgh Steeler and that I would win a Super Bowl. But that was it. I had set limitations on my life because that's all I wanted to accomplish.
Mama knew different.
And Mama said, you're so much more than that.
Exactly.
And now I want to let these kids know that you can be so much more than just what you set forth to be.
And it's so unfortunate sometimes that our kids putting the limitations on themselves, they box themselves in. They box themselves into their community. They box themselves into not going any further than their doorstep or no further than, their street or whatever. And life is vast. There's so much out there for them to just take hold of and be a part of. And Mike, with you being who you are, where you've been, and where you're teaching our children to go, I think it's phenomenal because they can see that life is attainable.
Right.
It's not just breathing every day, getting up every day. It's what you do with your life and with the gift that God has given you to wake up every day. Right. You need to go forth and build on that life's resume like you're doing.
Right. And I tell them there's still places that I want to go. There's still other cultures that I want to learn about. And by me going to these different places and learning about these different cultures, it's only making me a better person. Absolutely. Because I'm getting exposed to things that I've never been exposed to. And once they see that, so some of them never been exposed to a professional athlete, I'm able to have that conversation with them, give them that exposure, let them see how we think. And they say, well, I think like that as well. Well, guess what? You can become this if you work hard and do all the things that come with it. And on top of that, you have a resource now that has actually been there and done it. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, use me as your resource. And then I'll go to my resource and get replenished. Yes. And I'll be able to keep on giving.
And our children need to have people like you. They need to have encouragement. They need that mentorship. They need to know that they are much more better, if there's such a word, much more, shouldn't use that. That
they understand that lingo, believe me.
They need to understand that they are much better than what they think they are.
Right. And that's what I told them. I said, look at the limitations, even though I thought they were astronomical at that time, that I put on myself. And I said, I'm more than that. So don't put that circle right around your dreams and say, once I accomplish this, that's it. You can go far beyond that.
Absolutely. So talk about G.V.I.
G.V.I, Group Violence Intervention. This program has actually been helpful to me. It's a program that was put together to have outreach workers in different communities come in and deter group violence, not gang violence, group violence.
And that was initiated by?
That was initiated by the city of Pittsburgh, Chief Bickerstaff, Cornell Jones, Pastor Cornell Jones, who is our director of the G.V.I. program, came together with some of the community leaders, Reverend Grayson being one of them, Jimmy and Lisa Thorpe Vaughn, and then they got the outreach workers, which are myself, Antoine Bailey, Vaughn Rivers, Io Young, and Jimmy Vaughn. And they said, listen, we have to do something about the violence in our communities. And we want you guys to actually be these walking pawns in our communities to be able to reach out and give our communities a voice. When I say a voice, not just to be heard, to be able to develop a rapport with city officials, with police, with community leaders, because sometimes having a voice doesn't get you heard. Right. And we wanted to link arms with them and say, okay, let's bring you to the table. Instead of you just having a voice, you're going to be heard.
And the church.
And the churches.
Faith-based communities.
The faith-based communities who have been instrumental in helping us reach some of the people in the community we may not have been able to reach. Just because they have such a tenured relationship with a lot of their community members, and sometimes they'll be accepted more than somebody just walking in saying, hey, even if they're offering help, they still have to build up that trust bank. And we've been able to do that through all of our faith-based entities.
And as well, just to add a little bit to that, from what you're saying with the faith-based community, the pastors or the leaders of the church can reach out to their
Oh,
congregations
yes.
and make them aware of what this whole process is,
Right.
so that they are more understanding of and accepting
Right.
of what it is and what they can do
Right.
to also help in this whole project.
Yes, and we utilize a plethora of their services as well. You know, most of the pastors that we work with, they've been tenured at their church, so they know some people that we may not know, and they're able to go to them and say, "Listen, these outreach workers in our communities have services that we may be not, the church doesn't have access to. So utilize this service." But a lot of people are reluctant because they don't have that relationship or that rapport.
Right.
But they do with their pastors. And we've got a great rapport with our pastors. We work with Reverend Grayson, who's been,
He's awesome.
he has been, you know, our earthly, physical community savior. He just does so much for the Hill District, all of the educational institutions in the Hill District and beyond. He goes outside of the Hill District.
Yes.
I see him all over the
He's
place.
all over the city.
He's all over the city. I think he's actually cloned a couple of times because I'm like, Rev, I just seen you at the center. How did you get over to the West End? How did you get over to the North Side? He's been very, you know, instrumental in us having success in reaching the kids.
Awesome. What are some of the services that G.V.I. provides for the community?
So when we have a situation, a lot of times we'll get calls and they're saying, hey, there's a group of kids or young men or young women up at our communities having some tensions. We'll intercede. We'll go in. We'll see who may be, we don't like to say gang leader or someone who, you know, may just be known in the community to have that voice. And we'll go talk to them and say, hey, what can we do to help you? So we do a lot of mediation. We actually go so far as to get on social media and deter some of the beefs and detract some of the beefs. We've had numerous sports programs that we've gotten kids involved in that they didn't know exist. We've actually created our own sports program. I have a 7-on-7 league that we bring kids in and we try to, you know, allow them to come in and not have to pay. Reverend Grayson has a basketball league that we do right here at the center that we have during the summer. We get them involved with Learn to Earn programs. We have job fairs. We have expungement workshops. It goes on and on. There's a plethora of resources and services that we're able to provide, but that's by us building community partners. So the outreach workers and Miss Lisa Thorpe Vaughn, she helps us make those connections with all these community resource programs, and we start to just build relationships with them. And it all just starts from a conversation of what we're doing through our mentorship, through our program, G.V.I. program, and they say, you know what, we'll hop on board with you.
And that's awesome because you need all the partners
we do.
you can get. But I want to go back a little bit because you talked about when you intercede and you try to de-escalate.
Right.
We need everyone to understand that you are not trying to be the police.
Right.
You have a partnership
Yes.
with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. You are not trying to do their job. So let's talk a little bit about that and where the G.V.I. program stands in relationship to the law enforcement relationship.
That is so significant. We are not the police. We are not the police. We do not try to do their job. And we want the police in our community to be respected. We are at a time in our society right now where police aren't looked at in a positive light. We want to help bridge that gap between the non-communication between the community and the police, where people saying, I wouldn't help the police out. We want to be that voice to be able to go and say, before it gets to the police and they have to intercede, what can we do to help this? And knowing that we're not the police, what we talk about, what we do has nothing to do with them. We just want to prevent them having to come in and take charge without you saying that you had some other services available.
Right.
And we are that service.
And
So
you want the police to be the last resort.
the last resort.
Right.
And that's where Reverend Cornell Jones comes into play, because he has a relationship with the police. And he will come in, they do custom notifications where they will go talk to a person and say, listen, you're already on the police radar, but I'm here to try to get you off. I'm trying to get you off that police radar. And if I can do something to help you, whatever it is, Cornell goes above and beyond what the scope of work is that we say on the flyer and look pretty. He goes beyond that. And he's offering himself. He's offering every resource and service that we have. And Cornell has been like the glue that has held us together in relationship with the community and relationship with the police, but not sticking it all together to where we're affiliated as workers of the police.
Right, right. You have your entity,
yes,
and the police they have their entity.
They have their own separate entity
right.
and agenda.
Right.
And our agenda is just to help you and give you those services.
And the public needs to know as well that you are not in a position, nor would you all put yourself in a position as an organization to try to intercede once the police come to do their job. It's like hands off now.
Yeah.
The law enforcement is here, and they're here to do their job.
We step back at that point, but we don't want it to get to that point.
Exactly.
We want to have those strings already connected to you to say, okay, we don't need them. You know, we handled it. Everything is fine. And we actually want you to work with us. So now all the access that we have to services and resources, we want you to regurgitate that and have it for you. So you can pass it on to people we may not know in these communities, or people who we haven't built enough trust with in your respective community.
What type of training do you and the other 4 gentlemen have to be able to de-escalate?
Well, we've done numerous mediations with all the educational programs, institutions in all of our communities. So we actually got to do some different things with different organizations who have come in and said, okay, tell me your skill set. So they would sit me down. My thing is I like to do one-on-one mentorship with kids and find out what their trigger points are. So I find out what triggers them, and then we start getting into the nitty-gritty. I'm like, okay, so if I put out a scenario to them and see how they would handle it, and I'll say, okay, well, you could have did this instead of doing that. You could have said this instead of saying that. You could have presented yourself in this manner instead of presenting yourself like that. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of character development. We do a lot of, we talk about presentation, just the way you walk.
Says a lot.
It does.
Pull your pants up.
We deal with that a lot. So, you know, we give out belts.
Yes.
We actually had a program called A Tie for Every Guy with Reverend Grayson, where we gave out ties, and we actually taught the kids how to tie ties. But we also taught them how to button up shirts, you know, how to tuck their shirts in, how to, you know, pull their pants up, but still be presentable. How to speak. You know, we know they have these slang terms now, and I'm kind of lost. I think I'm getting up there now. You know, I got to stay in tune with my kids and ask them,
what does that mean?
Yeah, you know, do they still stay cool? Or, you know, it's different. But
they don't say groovy anymore, though.
They don't say groovy. And if you say groovy,
they'll look
you know,
at you like,
I've been the butt of a couple jokes with my kids. But even in that, being the butt of a joke and how I receive it and how I react to it, I'm able to show them how I deal with it. By not, you know, exploding or, you know,
angered.
Yeah, you know, just coming back at them with something, and that's been So, like I said, I'm still growing. I'm still growing and still learning.
You know, this is good stuff because our children need this guidance. They need to learn because they are so much more. And you know, they need to they need this part because they need to start to learn who they are. And they need to understand and unravel what their potential is. Because if they stay in the same, and I use this term, rut, that they're in, not growing, not learning, not understanding that the world has so much more to offer them than they think, like you said before, in their little circle, that I think they'll be all the more better for that.
And it's so easy for them now with social media.
Absolutely.
They let social media dictate who they are
Yes.
because they're always comparing their life to somebody else
Yes.
in this on social media who may not even be the person that they portray themselves to be. And that's what we tell them. We said, this person may not even be who they are presenting out on the internet because then you're going to mock that and you're going to present yourself that way, and that's not who you are. So we help them find who they are. And, you know, sometimes it's hard because it's a harsh reality. They may not, you know, the person that they discover who they are may not be who they want to be, and they get down. We're there to pick them up and say, you can raise yourself up from this person and be better just by doing this, just by doing that. And it's little subtle things. We're not trying to come in and
rearrange their whole life.
And convert them and take them away from who they are. And we want them to do it in their respective community. And that's why I came back to the Hill District, because I wanted to give back to the communities where I grew up at, to the communities where I know there are children just like me who may have had a lack of resources, who may have dealt with poverty, who may have dealt with a broken home. But just because I came from a broken home in terms doesn't mean I'm broken. And even if I'm broken, I can be fixed. I can be pieced back together.
Absolutely. They need to learn that, and they need to understand that. That's very important. I want to go back a little bit and reference the goals of the organization. And one of them is engage community stakeholders and residents to decrease violence. Overall, has there been an effective buy-in to this process by the community, by the police, has there been an effective buy-in?
I think we're getting to that point. You know, it's one thing to just walk into a community and say, hey, we have these guys and they're going to do outreach in your communities and just hand over the issues to us. No, we're working on building up that credibility in these communities. We're not there yet because we're not as known for doing this work. When I come into a community, I'm still known as Mike Logan, the Pittsburgh Steeler, which is great because it gives me access to a lot of communities that I may not have had access to. So thank you for getting me in the door. But once we're in that door, it's about what we're doing in those communities. Once we have access. Yes. And we're still building that right now. But I feel confident with the people that we have in place right now, we're going to be able to have a greater impact. So it's not a complete buy-in to the communities yet, but we're working on it.
It's getting there.
We're working on it.
Good, good. The next goal was create a community presence through outreach visibility. How is this being accomplished? I know in this setting that we're doing today, this taping that we're doing today, is one.
It's one. It's one. But we also have seminars. We actually have events. We've actually partnered with a lot of different entities in the community so we can kind of get our presence out there. We're out every day. Every day, the 5 outreach workers that we have, we are in our communities. We're getting involved in different programs. We're getting involved with the faith-based institutions in each community and being a presence there because you have to be seen by these people. Absolutely. You have to be seen by our children. You have to be seen by the residents. You can't just show up when something is going on and say, hey, I'm here. They want to see you. And the good fortunate thing that we have in the Hill District is we have so many people who are doing so many different things, and we are in touch with the young kids. Now we have, through the faith-based institution, we're getting involved with the older Samaritans in our different communities, and we're able, like when I said we don't understand the youth language, they might not understand our generation's language, but we're bridging those gaps.
Yes.
And that can only happen by us being there. So we're more active at everything that's going on in the communities. We're there. We're actually showing up. And then we're showing them who we are. So if I start a conversation and it talks about the steel curtain and that gets me in the door,
yeah. You're going through the door.
I'm going through the door. I'll talk about that steel curtain,
yes.
and then I'm finding out what's going on in their life. You know, I'm asking questions.
Seeing what their steel curtain
Yeah,
is.
seeing what that steel curtain is.
Yeah.
Now, the steel curtain was hard to take down back on the football field,
Yes.
but by establishing that rapport with them, we're able to take down some of those walls and establish a rapport.
And you know, it's really sad that so many of our youth have those walls.
Yeah, they do. They do. And I see that a lot. I actually mentored in University Prep in the Hill District. Mm-hmm. So I was a life skills educator and mentor at University Prep. And I was able to sit down one-on-one with a lot of kids, even in the group form, and find out what was going on with them. A lot of times it's assumed by educators and adults that this is going on with them. But they may have deeper issues. And the deeper issue may just be the surface of what's going on. We think it's so deep, and it's really just the surface of what's going on. And it may be something mentally,
yes.
you know, that never been really addressed. It was just written off as he's a troublemaker.
He's a bad kid.
He's a bad seed.
Yeah.
And that one bad seed is trickling off to all these other people and all these other kids.
It festers.
And we may find out that he wasn't even the bad seed. He was the one that was just the most vocal.
Yes.
He was the one who just wasn't afraid or embarrassed enough to go out and do that. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to get in some of those entities by being an educator in University Prep.
This is good stuff, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next goal, provide case management service to identified youth. How do you do that?
So, Reverend Cornell.
Dr. Reverend Cornell.
We do have some kids in our communities, or even adults in our communities, persons in our communities that we know may be having some issues, or we may know of certain beefs that are in different communities, and we're able to speak with those individuals. Reverend Cornell actually can give us referrals of different people that have been identified in different communities of who may need some services. And he goes so far as to establish a rapport with them first before he even hands them off to us. Okay. So he gets to know them, and he passes them to us and say, hey, I already spoke to this person. They know you're calling. You can tell them what services you can provide for them. Or they just may want to talk to you because they don't know what my agenda is.
Right.
And he's so unselfish in doing that to pass off this it's not really work, but he'll pass that off and say, I just want to help this young person, or I want to change their life, or I want to let them know that they can have access to this, but they're not going to receive it from me. And you intervene. So that's how we've been developing our caseloads through Reverend Cornell.
And so this is how you are connecting these young men to the services and resources that's needed to try to turn their lives around.
Yes. Yes.
And make them understand and start believing in themselves.
Yes. And you should, he's a reverend, he's a pastor, but just in him speaking to us, it almost sounds like he's preaching. And he's like, I don't got the cloth on today, I don't got the cloth on today.
He has the cloth on every day.
He's like, I'm just speaking to y'all, I'm just talking to y'all.
Yes.
But he puts out so much positivity into the atmosphere, you can't help but receive it. So after we hear him speak to us, we're ready to go out and hit the street and do what we got to do.
Boots on the ground and do what you got to do.
That's it.
Oh, that's awesome. In my research, I read where you enjoy working in the Pittsburgh public school system as a mentor,
Yes.
which you said you worked in UPrep in the
UPrep.
Hill District. Tell our viewers about the success of that wonderful vocation and the outreach to our youth. How successful has that been in reaching the youth at UPrep? And I'm looking at that only as not the community, but in just that area.
Right.
How has that been successful there?
I just got to share a testimony.
Amen.
I started mentoring at University Prep probably about 8 years ago. And I was actually doing it as outreach outside of University Prep. I started coaching football. Lou Berry got the head coaching job at University Prep and asked me what I joined his coaching staff. And I said, only if I can mentor these young men. I said, football will come naturally. I can give you all the knowledge that I've acquired over my career. But I said, I want to go deeper than that. So if we can use football as this vehicle through athletics and sports and show them how that correlates with life. So everything that we did had a life lesson in it. So I would say, listen, we're going to, us cleaning up the field at the end of the day. And they're like, well, Coach, they got a guy that comes up here and cleans all this stuff up. And I said, we're going to do that. We're going to clean up this field. They're like, man. And then I would say on a Saturday or Sunday where we didn't have a game or anything, I say, now we're going to go into the community and we're going to help clean up in these communities. So it would become secondhand nature to them. I would have kids calling me on a Saturday and say, Coach, are we going out to clean up this weekend? We got to make sure that our field is clean. We started a youth program at Ammons where assistant coach Greg Johnston and I started up a youth program. We just were like, we're just going to go down there and train these kids. Mm-hmm. We're going to train them to start taking care of their bodies. We're going to train them to start drinking water. We're going to train them to start thinking about their diet and nutrition. And one of those young men who came up through that program is now running his own youth program at Ammons called Camp Mitty. And Rashawn, he's doing an outstanding job. He took us just going up there and starting the program just because we wanted to do it and needed to be done. Now he's taken that program. The torch has been passed. And now he's teaching and training and putting those same ideas and testimonies into these kids, and I'm sure that they'll take it. So we have programs that have been instilled in young men that's going to be passed down from generation to generation to generation. And the same, message is being taught throughout that. That is amazing.
So the fruits of your labor and the labor that you all have instilled in the gentleman that's working at Ammons, that has paid off. Yes. He's paying it forward.
Paying it forward.
The children, or I should say the youth, the young men, who are calling you to clean up the field, to get ready for their next session or whatever, they are taking pride in their field. They're taking pride in the way they're dressing and the way you're teaching them to be young men. They're starting to take pride in themselves.
They are.
This is awesome.
And they're excited about it. There's a young man that I mentored one-on-one with at University Prep who got a job now. He had went through a lot of things. He had a police record. He had his license was suspended. He had gotten shot. He's working. He's doing security for a company downtown, and my wife ended up seeing him, and she was like, hey, wasn't that one of your football players? And I'm like, that was. I'm like, wow, he got a job doing security but he went through, he came in to one of our expungement workshops. He cleaned up his record. He was able to get that. He was able to pay off the fines and get his license renewed. Mm-hmm. He was able to find out that some of the charges that were on his record by coming to that workshop weren't even his. Mm-hmm. They were somebody else's, but he was able to get that record clean by coming to that workshop. Him just showing up and having a presence there is testimony in itself.
Absolutely.
And he's able to share that story with other young men. So when we have the next expungement workshop or job fair, we'll have more people there through his testimony sharing.
And that's very important because, they need to know that it's very important not to have a record.
Right.
You know, that it's very important, and I'm sure in your teachings you are showing them that that social media is great
Right.
in its place.
Yes.
Your life is not social media, so you should not put your life on social media. And I know that that's a tough nut to crack.
That
I know
is.
because,
That's
you
tough.
know, they're using social media as a prelude to their life.
Right.
And it is not, and that's not where that should be shared.
Right. And it's awesome because we had a little program where I actually teamed up with a couple of younger guys who do social media on a regular. They taught me some things, and they taught me how to. I didn't know what Snapchat was,
Instagram.
Instagram, you know. So I was able to work some of those things, but again, it went to show them that I'm still grown.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. You can still always learn something new. And by me being vulnerable and susceptible to some things, showed them that it's okay. This big macho guy who played football doesn't know everything. I was like, I don't claim to be a know-it-all.
Yes.
And guess what? I yearn for information. So
we can learn from each other. We all can learn from one another. I don't care how old you are.
Right.
You can learn from the young.
Right.
You can learn from our seniors.
Yeah.
You know,
it's and it's good that we're able to get that, bridge those gaps, because you know, without this G.V.I. program, without F.L.O.W. being out in the street, we wouldn't be able to get that. We wouldn't be able to reach the audiences that we reach if we didn't have that established line of communication.
Right. Now, F.L.O.W. Let's talk a little bit about F.L.O.W. because we've been with G.V.I.
Right.
Tell our viewers about the amazing program that F.L.O.W. is and what prompted you. Well, we've talked about what prompted you to the mentorship, but what prompted you to F.L.O.W.?
Right. Family Life Outreach Workers.
Yes.
So we're the action part of it. You know, everything that's written down in the pamphlet and the flyers that we pass out, that's wonderful. That's, you know, that's telling you what we're able to do. F.L.O.W. is actually the action piece of it. So when you see me out and we see different community events going on, we're actually there. We're actually there in the presence of the people in the community, not just in the Lower Hill District. We're in Chauncey Drive. We're in Elmore Square. We're, you know, at Ozenham. We're at Ammons. We're at the church. Being active and not just saying things. I sit at a lot of tables. I'm on a few boards, and sometimes we just have meetings, and people talk, and they talk a lot. Then that talk turns into somehow how I got a Super Bowl ring, and we're off the agenda. When I'm working for F.L.O.W., I'm on my game, and I'm working for Family Life Outreach. So when I'm out there, I want to be able to provide services for people and say connect them to them. So when we have an event, we have an event tonight, and we have a resource table with over 20 different programs who are coming here today. So we'll be F.L.O.W. tonight, and we're actively connecting people. Listen, this is, you need housing. We got somebody here from housing you can sit down and talk to right now. You need...
so this is community. It's not just you.
No.
This is community.
This is community.
Okay,
Family
that's
Life,
coming tonight.
That's coming tonight. So for F.L.O.W., F.L.O.W. does community.
Okay.
We're outreaching each community that we're in. So it's the Hill District, it's Garfield, it's Homewood, it's the North Side. And we're actually, that's why we put the W on there, because it was F.L.O.W., F.L.O., Family Life Outreach. And we were like, F.L.O.W., workers, W. You got to throw that W on there. So we're actually actively out there in the communities. Engaging and providing resources, connecting them to it. Because sometimes if I give you a card and say, hey, this person is waiting on you to call. I already told them. I set the prelude for you. They still may not call. But when we go out and we say, hey, we're having an event, we're bringing in, we're tackling tough topics, and we're getting the people in the door, and we're saying, hey, this is the person that you need to talk to. They're right here. So if I got to go out and get one of my kids and take him to his probation hearing, I'm doing that. That's what Family Life Outreach Worker is. We're there with the people in our community who need that help. And, you know, there's only a few of us right now. We're trying to get another grant so we can add to different communities. We want to be able to service the whole city of Pittsburgh, and that's our goal.
And I'm hoping that any viewers listening, you're talking about getting grants, that they will want to come on board with such an amazing program. This is so sorely needed.
Right. And you have to come see it. You have to come be involved with us and engage with us, because it's pretty to say it, but when you see work in action being done, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I was able to team up with one of our outreach workers from the East End, Vaughn Rivers, and actually see him engage and make some things happen for people. It was outstanding. So come engage with us.
Awesome. Oftentimes, and not by any fault of their own, a lot of our youth come from strained families and not having the best upbringing. Based on the best practices in building your experience in working with the young men and women in the area of Pittsburgh, what are some of the key factors of your success in the area? Now, I know we talked about successes that you've had at UPrep, but overall, I want to go community-wide now. What have been some of the successes in the area? And do you also work on bringing families together by promoting parental involvement, or where there is a parent in the home?
Now, this is one of the areas where we haven't had as much success as we'd like to have.
Okay.
You know, we teamed up with the Pittsburgh Public Schools when they had to take your father to work, take your father to school day, and the Pittsburgh Promise We Summit. And we haven't had the participation that we thought we would have. So that's been an area that we've been trying to focus on. So what we're trying to do is do community events that involve the family. And I will say, as an educator, I was thoroughly disappointed in the parental involvement that we needed in our schools. And we really were trying to focus on bringing families together. Where we didn't understand why we were missing our mark so much is we have so many broken families in our communities. And it's hard for a child to speak on things in their family when things aren't together at home.
Right.
And that's disappointing. So we were like, this is bigger than us. This is a bigger issue than us. So when we went down to Jake Wheatley's office and we talked to him about different programs that he's doing, and he's like, this is on the level that I can deal with. This is above our pay grade here.
Right.
But we're teaming up with people such as Jake Wheatley to be able to
take it to that next level.
Because we didn't think about it. We're just like, okay, well, we want to bring families together. So we're going to do things, events in the communities that are gauged towards families. And they're
not keeping in mind that families are broken.
They're broken. And so they may not want to participate in that, whether they don't want to expose themselves to that and showcase their family. And that was insensitive on our parts, because we were like, we didn't think about that. But we are building towards that. We're getting, like I said, we're still growing. And we're still getting educated on those things.
Work in progress.
But the partnerships are there. The resources are there. And we're going to keep striving to get to that. And I'm glad that we were able to talk about that, because it shows that we're not this perfect organization who thinks we have all the answers. We just want to help you get those answers. And if we can help you do it, please utilize it.
Absolutely. This is good stuff, Mike. It really is. Instilling skill building, educational growth, and making our youth cognizant that there's a big world out there, and that in football terms, it's a big playing field. Okay? But long-term preparation is key to success. I'm sure that is something that you instill in them. How do they gravitate towards that information, or to you telling them that?
So what I've been doing is bringing those kids along with me. And instead of just getting them a job, I'm telling them to look towards a career. So we've been, okay, we're going to start here. But what's your long game? This is just short term. He said, Coach, well, I never even thought about it. I just wanted to make some money. I said, okay, you're making some money and you're getting a paycheck. Now we want to look for getting a salary. So what are you invested in? What is your, what is your desire? What do you want to do? And he started telling me about different things. He said, I don't know what I want to do, but this is what I like. I said, all right, we'll find a trade school for you. We'll work on getting that trade. Then we're going to work towards building a career. So we're starting to take career building steps. There's one young man that just talks about he's all on money. He's all on money. And I said, well, what do you know about money? I know I can buy what I like. I said, but let's think about that. I said, you start buying all the things that you like. And I put some amount of money here. And I said, okay, tell me all the things you like. He told me all the things we like. When we got finished, there was only a little piece left. I said, you haven't invested in nothing? I said, you don't have a vehicle? Well, he did have a vehicle. I said, you don't have a house? I said, where are you going to live? And he was like, well, Coach, I got this. I said, but you got to think about that. Let's start career building and taking those steps. Let's think about the longevity. I said, let's think about you having kids and raising a family and having to take care of them. So we talked about want versus need. What are the necessities of life? And if you get all the necessities and taken care of, then you can start working on your needs. So those are the long game things that we do with young men and young women that we are working with, thinking about the long-term aspects of their life.
And not to downgrade their dreams
Right.
on what they want. But again, like you said, you need to concentrate on the wants and the needs.
Right.
And building yourself a career. But along with building that career, you have to build some education too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You have to have that to go with it. So the trade school, great. Go to trade school if that's what you want. Not every kid wants the traditional four-year university.
Right.
Not every kid can do that.
And I shared my testimony again with them. When I went to school, one of my best friends, he got a full ride scholarship, but he got drafted as a junior. He didn't get to finish his education at West Virginia. He went on to the league and played, I think, 8 or 9 years. When he got finished, he didn't have his degree. And he was like, you know what? I got to go back to school. Yeah. What am I going to do? Yeah. And he ended up going back to school. I said, everybody's path doesn't look straightforward. Oh, I'm going to go to a 4-year institution, graduate in 4 years, come out and get a job. I said, all of our roads are going to have different angles and turns and everything. But that doesn't matter as long as we keep on striving for it. So we go into the schools. We go to the We Promise Summits. And we try to tell them, this is money for your education. You can apply it to, all these different places of second-tier education. Mm-hmm. You have to get it. We're partnering with some different trade schools and people, so we're able to send some kids to different trade schools. We got a job fair coming up where some trade companies are going to be there. And we're like, okay, this is another avenue that we can go down. So it's just resources. It's just resources, and like you said, keeping your education going.
But see, what's so important about that, too, is the people who are the resources buying into this project, seeing the need for our youth to be engaged in something other than the street life.
And like I said, if this ring can get me in the door to those resources, I use it. Yes. And like I said, God purposed me to get this forum to be able to do that so I can do what he purposed me to do in my life. And I'm thankful for it.
Awesome stuff. Okay, we talked about youth development. Are there projects and or processes in place to encourage our youth to take active participation in this with the seniors in their communities?
That's where the churches come in. That's where the churches come in. And we've been working with different churches to be able to do some of those things. Even last Sunday at Macedonia Church of Pittsburgh, they had a senior day. And it was service from the youth to service our senior patricianers, at the church. And we want to do those same things in our communities.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask them to join me in our community walk. We go up and we knock on every door in the community and we see our seniors and we gift them with things and we gift them with service. If you need your yards cut, if you need your hedges cut, we want to be able to do those things. And everybody's going to get old at some point, and we're going to need some help. So if we get that circle going now, we'll have already planted those seeds to when those youth get to that point and they see that the elder need their help, they'll be able to service them. And I think that
in
itself
speaks
is
volumes.
yeah. So there's so many things that we're trying to do and we want to do. But like I said, we have 5 outreach workers now, and we're continuing to grow this program. That's why we're so happy with the community partnerships that we have.
Yes.
But we also want to make sure that when we've developed these partnerships with the communities, that the residents have trust in those partnerships, in all the programs that we affiliate with.
Yes.
So, because if something happens that puts a negative connotation on it, then they're going to say, well, Coach Logan, G.V.I. did that.
Yes.
You know, they affiliated me with this program.
And you can't afford that.
We can't afford to have that.
Can't afford to have that. Also, in working with the seniors, not only is it great to go knocking on the doors, you know, we're with, you know, XYZ company or XYZ program,
right,
and we would like to clean your yard, or how can we service you today? But it also lets the people, the seniors in the community know that, you know what, I knew that young man when he was just, you know, for lack of a better word, a street thug.
Right.
Now he is coming to help me clean my yard. A trust is built between the seniors, and they're not afraid to go down the street and not have to clutch their purses under their arms or their bags to them or whatever, or even be afraid to walk down the street for fear of being, you know, assaulted.
Rapport can be a community healer.
Absolutely.
We live in communities where people don't even want to talk to their neighbors.
Yes.
Without even knowing them. I just don't want to talk to them. We want them to engage and develop those.
And, you know, taking that one step farther, that when you speak to the older people and find out some history about the community, our youth may even find out that they're somewhere down their bloodline, there could have been someone who has done something extraordinary in the community or been a famous forerunner in the community. So that gives them a reason to be able to kind of stick their chest out and say, you know, my great-grandfather or my great-uncle or my grandmother or whomever, great-grandmother, you know, they did this, that, and the other. And it gives them a sense of pride within themselves because, you know, they can say, yeah, I'm somebody.
Right. And even in the Hill District. The Hill District has so much history and tradition.
Yes.
To the point where the Hill District has their own urban language.
Yes.
There's certain slang that is used
only in the Hill.
Only in the Hill District that can identify you by the, you know, coming from the Hill District.
Yes.
And we had to ask these young men, do you know where that came from? Do you know where that originated? What's the story behind that? And some of them didn't know. And then we took a little voyage down Center Avenue, and we stopped in Donnie Kite's store in Ikeware. And he was able to explain where the term Ike came up from. We went to Big Tom's Barber Shop, and they were talking about the word nefs and how it came up and what it meant. And these kids didn't even know. So then they were excited. They went back to school, and they're telling their friends, this is where this term came up from. And that now it's just a long line, and they'll be able to go down and pass it down. Yes. So when young kids are saying these terms, they understand where it derived from.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing opening your mind and having someone teach you about the history of where you came from or where you're living now. It's just awesome. Our kids need to know this. It's just very important. And oftentimes there's things that they don't learn in school. Yeah. Oh, well, we know there's a lot of things that they don't learn in school, but you understand what I'm saying, that just the mere communities that they come from, just to learn the rich history there and learn who they are about.
And then with us having these outreach workers in these different communities, we're learning about things outside of our own community. There's things that I didn't know about Garfield that Vaughn is able to explain to me. And we're able to, when we pair these groups together, if we have a workshop or we have a celebration cookout or something, and I got kids from the Hill District and he has kids from Garfield, we're able to share in each other's community vibes and traditions and things that they have going on in different communities. Now they're versed. They can say, I'm from the city of Pittsburgh and this borough or this township, or and this is what they do over here, and this is what we do over here, and this is, so that creates dialogue. And with kids, they want to talk about what they have in their community, and they want to showcase what they got in their community. We can bring that all together.
Conversation and learning. That's just very important. So, curious. You have Garfield. You have the North Side. You have the Hill District. You have East Liberty. You have Homewood. Bringing all of these young men together.
So, when I took the job at University Prep to coach football, University Prep is a magnet school. We have kids from every different community coming up to that school. We got a football team. We're out there first day of practice, and they're using their verbiage that come from different sides of the city, Tizzy and Ike and Net, and they're like, man, we don't really get along with them. I said, well, how are we going to be a football team if you don't get along with your teammates? Oh, well, he's from there and he's from there. I said, listen, on this team, we one united front. USO is actually, University Prep, Science and Technology, and Obama Academy are actually a three-way co-op for sports for PPS and University Prep. So we had kids from Science and Technology, kids from Obama, where they were getting kids from everywhere, and kids from the Hill District. And we had to stir up that melting pot and put all those kids together and form a team. It was rough. It was rough. We had some days where practice wasn't nothing but arguments and fights. Yeah. We were breaking it up. But through that, we were able to teach discipline. We were able to teach teamwork. We were able to teach them how to put their differences aside and come together as a group. And we were like, this is our group. Everybody's from USO. We're not taking away where you're from and who you are. But on this field and on this team, this is who we are. And then we said, if we were able to do this, and we had success, we won City League championship. We actually won one of our district region games and had a championship. And we brought them together. We said, just imagine if you can do this in your life. If you were able to do it on this football team and on this field, you're able to do that in your community. That was a prime example for us. And we continue to utilize that model and scale year in and year out.
And it's been successful.
And it's been successful. There's a lot of beefs and confrontations that diminished before they even started up. And those are the things that we are focused on as G.V.I. A lot of preventative measures. So it could be a lot more brewing up in the community. People may say, well, we didn't see it. We didn't actually see you de-escalate that situation. That's because we got it from the initiation, from the foundation. And we didn't let them put another block on it. We just knocked it down. We were able to diminish that before that started up.
Or another nail could be put in that coffin. You just got it from the ground.
And that's work that isn't acknowledged. People don't have to see it.
Correct.
But when we come together at the table and we say, yo, we stopped this beef from happening, where I was able to talk to this young person, where I was able to talk to this old OG in the hood, and they said it's all good. That's a victory.
It is a victory.
And it's a victory with us, and we don't have to, it doesn't need to be celebrated outside that room, but then we know we're serving the purpose of what we were designed here to do. And that's what we found our joy.
This is just awesome stuff. I mean, just to learn about all the things that you're doing in the community. I had no idea about G.V.I. I had no idea about F.L.O.W. And I just think it's wonderful to have the mentors in the community who are helping our young men. It's so sorely needed.
I think the one thing, since we're not as known, we have a lot of humility in our group. And when we're working with the faith-based institutions, there's a lot of humility. A lot of us don't want the credit for actually doing this. But we know we need to spread the word so people can know who we are. We don't need to be celebrated for every backpack we hand out or every, door that we knock on. We don't need that. We just want our communities to be safe. We want them to be prosperous. And if we get that, we're okay with that.
And that's so unselfish. That's so unselfish. And it's people like you who are working to make our communities better. Working together with the faith-based organizations, working with the police, working with the residents of the different communities, and most of all, working with the youth, to make them understand that it takes more than just being in your own box. It just takes so much more than that. So, the overall key objective of this entire initiative is outreach. And included in that outreach, and I'm just going to refer to my notes here,
Yes.
Included in that outreach, each outreach worker uses an intervention protocol to de-escalate situations with steps including formal mediations utilizing roundtable members. We talked about that. Engagement of partners and mentors for intervention mediation. That is you. And the other four gentlemen.
Yes.
Contacting of police liaison.
Yeah.
That is Reverend Cornell.
Yes.
And Assistant Chief Bickerstaff. Developing and holding support groups for ex-offenders, including connecting them to services and employment. That's your resource, the people on the outside, your different resources that you're bringing in. So, in the overall connection to the faith-based institutions, what are your expectations of their services besides the spiritual enrichment, your guidance / mentorship, and providing and needing resources to help ensure a successful transition into manhood? What more can you ask for from the faith-based organization?
And I'm a believer. I'm a Christian man, and I know where my faith lies. But sometimes people are afraid to come to these churches or come to a pastor or come to someone who speaks the gospel to them. We want them to be inviting and not be such an intimidating force to someone. It's easy to say, come as you are, but then put restrictions on them. There's been times where I've went to different places and said, well, you can't come in here with that dressed on. You told me to come as I am. There's a lot of brokenness.
The Lord said, come as
you
are.
Right. There's a lot of brokenness. Yes. We don't want the faith-based institutions to look like cliques or to have these segregated divisions of people. Yes. We just want to say, listen, and this is why we wanted to partner with them, so we can build that trust bank with them, so the people that we bring in, we're not going to judge you. We're going to offer ourselves to you. We want to truly be like Jesus and serve. Mm-hmm. We got to wash feet. That's what we got to do. Mm-hmm. Nobody's too big. Nobody's too small. And that's what we want. We want to, we know we can identify who these problem kids or problem people are, but we don't want to judge them. We're going to hold their hand just like you should hold our hands. Yes. So we can move out the way and put them right here, and you can hold their hand just like we hold their hand. And we're not just going to say, we're going to reform you by preaching the gospel to you and doing this. No, we're going to offer these resources to you.
And it's a baby step.
Right.
You got to take baby steps in that. And I totally agree with you, because I, too, have seen this occur. I have seen, this has been some years ago, but you talk about coming as you are. I, 2 instances, saw some young men going to a church to go into the church. They were told they could not come into the church. Wow. You know, this has been some years ago, but they were, you know, pants sagging and stuff like that, but they were told that they couldn't go into church. That bothered me. Yeah. The other thing that I thought was a good side of it is, you know how the churches have the tents out in the summertime, and they want to draw the community in. I saw some young ladies who had a different lifestyle, but they were interested in, they heard the pastor, they heard the message, and this had been going on for several nights, and they just wanted to come in and be a part of it. The people there were so inviting to have these young women come in and sit down and listen. You know that those young women came every night that the outdoor revival lasted. They came every night. Now, I don't know if that helped to reform them, if that helped them, but the mere fact that they came every night after they were initially invited in, because they were afraid to come in. They didn't think that they would be accepted to come into because of their particular lifestyle, but they were accepted. They were, you know, ushered in and were given a seat. And I just thought that that was wonderful. So then you have those that are coming as they are, and those trying to come as they are, and the doors being closed.
They got to be received. And
absolutely.
They have to be received. And even to the point where we'll have young men or young women try to, you know, play in some of their church basketball leagues. And a lot of kids will say, well, I can't go out for that because that's the church. That's the church's league. What?
Yeah.
Listen, we going up here, we're going to get y'all all involved in this community basketball league, and we want them to be received.
Yes.
And I think that's the churches that we are partnered with, I think they're very receiving. I think they're putting out that good message, and we're inviting those arms. And that's why we want to be seen with them as well. We want to be seen with them. So the people that we work with in the community know that, okay, they can trust them. That's a safe haven. We're not you know, it's not just the museum for pretty people. It's the hospital for broken people.
Yes.
And, you know, we want it to be seen as a hospital and not be afraid to go in there and get services because they ain't got insurance. You know?
Right. Right.
They're going to service you.
Yes.
So that's our ideal goal with our relationship.
And going in and just being a part of the process of learning about Jesus, learning about what he was about. You know, he took in the poor, he preached to the poor, he preached to the sick, he preached to the downtrodden, he spoke to the broken women and men. Isn't that what we're supposed to be about?
Yeah. Isn't and not, you know, people always say, well, I can't be a Christian because I don't fit those that criteria. What? You know what I mean? Listen, come learn. Just come learn. We're going to service you. And we're not going to judge you. Just come and be serviced. What you do with that, you know what I mean, is on you, but we're going to offer that service to you. We're going to wrap our arms around you. And hopefully you know, invite the hug and embracement.
Yes.
You know, but even if you don't, we're not going to judge you. We're still going to be here. We're still going to have our doors open for you. We're still going to try to open up our arms and let you come in. That's what we do.
Whenever you come, we're here for you. Like, this has been just, again, I can't stop saying it. This is just amazing.
The way you feel in hearing about it is the way we feel in doing the acts of service. We really go out. We got a great group of guys who are adamant about doing this type of work, doing this type of outreach, elated to do it. I mean, there's not a lot of money in it. I'm going to just be honest.
Yeah.
You know, we got one grant. Well, this is our second year getting a grant. We're not.
But you're not doing it for the money.
Yeah, we're not doing it for that. A lot of these guys, but we want to do this. People want to make it their work to go out and do this because they have a passion and desire to do it. And we want to make this a career of it because outreach needs to be done. The way we put it, there's disease in our community. The disease is violence. We're trying to bring that cure for that disease.
And that disease is festering
yeah.
more and more
yeah.
every day.
Oh, yeah. And we're trying to prevent the disease from spreading.
Yes.
And I think we're doing that. We prevent things from happening. That prevents that disease from spreading through our community.
Awesome program. Is there anything else that you want our viewers to know that maybe I have not asked? We talked about a ton of things today, but is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I think we covered everything. But I just want them to know that, it's not about us. It's not about, the police. It's about you. And it's about you taking care of your community, being involved in that community so we can keep our communities passed down to generation to say this is how it's supposed to be. When I was coming up, there was violence in my community, but we took pride in our community. When there was an issue, we tried to resolve it. I remember grown-ups coming together and talking to each other and saying, hey, we want to have our annual cookout. We want to have our annual basketball game up here. We don't want that to be taken away from us.
Yes.
We shouldn't let that be taken away from us. What can we do to come together to keep this going? What can we do to keep these traditions to be passed down for generations and generations and keep reminding them and letting them know that the history of their communities, there was greatness to come out of it. If we don't keep these communities together, we'll lose some of that greatness. It'll be gone. And other people will take that greatness and have it in their community.
Exactly.
We got to keep it.
Got to keep it right here. I think that, too, we need to give a great shout out to Reverend Grayson for allowing us to use this facility to tape the show, and a shout out to the city of Pittsburgh for having such a wonderful G.V.I. program, to Pastor Darnell and to Assistant Chief Lavani Bickerstaff for championing this.
No doubt.
And Ms. Thorpe?
Yes, Lisa Thorpe Vaughn.
Lisa Thorpe Vaughn for championing the G.V.I. project.
We call her for a plethora of things. So her cup runs over because we be putting it on there. We be putting it on there, but she's outstanding. She's outstanding in handling things for us and building those relationships. Because I'll get a card in the middle of an event that I'm keynoting or something, and I'll say, "Hey, we want you to partner with the G.V.I. program. Call Miss Lisa Thorpe and see what she can do." And she'll be like, "Mike, I got 5 phone calls a day, but they're going to be at our next event. And they're going to offer their services, and this is what they can do. This is what they can't do, but they're able to do this, and they're going to be here." And I'm like, all right.
Every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps.
But she's in there doing it, isn't she?
They're doing it.
All right.
So,
thank you, Mike. Thank you
so
much.
Thank you for letting me share my testimony and just, explain a little bit of what we do because it needs to be out there. And like I said, if we never got one acknowledgement for this, we would be okay with that. But we want the people to know who we are, and we want them to see us and utilize our services.
What an amazing story of a man who has devoted the second part of his life to helping our youth prepare for theirs. With so much violence, more specifically gun violence, happening in our communities between our youth, we need more men to step up and become role models and show our young men that the way to a great future is not through the barrel of a gun, but through hard work, dedication, and being all that you can be. If you have time to devote to being a mentor, contact G.V.I. at FLECDC2007GVI@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Let's Talk.